our staff being female and the remaining 20% being male, that is something that any company can do and, make a difference. We have about 300 research jobs that we've created over the past few months across Nigeria. And for us, when we do anything we do, we ask ourselves, how is this going to also make a difference? And it's just having that at the back of your mind that you become...
Intentionality.
Intentionality, that you become an impact company. I think if you're an impact company and an investor puts in money in your company and they believe in your mission, they have become an impact investor. So we shouldn't just push it on the investors. Companies should decide to become impact companies as well.
All right, thank you for that. Just to switch gears a little bit, this question is to all, so any panelist can choose to answer. So compared to mainstream businesses, social enterprises typically take longer to scale. They require smaller investments that drive up transaction costs and operate in a range of sectors with untested models that require substantial support beyond capital. What will it take to foster impact investing for social enterprises? Essentially, how do we create SDG-aligned SMEs? And that question is for anybody on the panel that would like to answer.
Okay, thank you. One of the reasons why I wanted to tackle that question, because it's one that we face on a daily basis.
Right.
We have a portfolio of entrepreneurs, about 9,000 of them now across the continent. And many of them, like I said earlier on, are trying to solve problems that are targeted at SDGs. And they face significant challenges, which we, over the years, have been able to categorize. One is we need to train a number of these people to become managers of businesses, as opposed to just being people who have ideas. And because when we're able to do that, these people will be able to create businesses that are sustainable in the long term, and also be able to multiply the impact that they are doing in the society. So one of it is to develop education or managerial development and to allow them to be able to scale in all that they do. And we try to establish that in the Tony Elulu Foundation with what we do on our entrepreneurship program. The second thing is to provide access to some form of capital that is commercial. And what I mean by that is that, like he mentioned, we have to stop seeing, we have to look at these SMEs, these small businesses, as businesses, and help them to instill in them the discipline to be able to take capital and return capital with a return. Because when they do that, it enforces them to to conduct their businesses under certain business principles that allows some of these multiplication factor on their ability to be able to solve these solutions. The third thing is to create a network. What we found at the foundation was a number of the entrepreneurs we have in our portfolio have solutions that address problems that other entrepreneurs in different parts of the continent are seeking to deal with. And so creating a network where they can all come together and be able to interact and they can share ideas and also help to deal with each other's problems, we found to be very effective. And so we also developed what we call TEF Connect, where is a platform where we have all the entrepreneurs, we have mentors on the platform, people, investors on the platform that come, and there is this network that is buzzing that allows these entrepreneurs to flourish over time. So here are some things that I think are important to put in place to allow these things to work.
Thank you for that. Does anybody else want to chip into that question?
Sure. I'll just share very briefly. So from Ford Foundation's perspective, we approach impact investing in two separate ways. First of all is through our grant making, or you could call it our program-related investing. We deploy capital with little to no expectation of returns under our program-related investing. And we do this because we want to de-risk these social enterprises so that they can receive more capital. I'll give an example. If anyone has heard of the Made in Aba campaign, I don't know if anyone's familiar with it.
Yes.
So we essentially funded the Made in Aba campaign to set up an association of Aba shoemakers so that they could collect lines of credit. And we did this because Bank of Industry had expressed to us that they were interested in extending a line of credit, but they were worried about the possibility of collecting, yes, exactly, the risk of collecting on returns. And so we decided to take on that risk, and by setting up this association through our grant making, through our funding, we were able to de-risk the investment and allow BOI to extend about 4 million naira to these Abbas shoemakers. So
Let's definitely clap for that.
then on the mission-related investment side of things that we do, which you already talked about it, we have that $1 billion fund, which is like the largest commitment.
1 billion, not 1 million, guys, 1 billion.
1 billion USD fund deployed over 10 years. That is the largest commitment by any American foundation. And through that initiative, we're de-risking our investment by working through private equity firms or fund of funders so that we can have them take on the risk, and then we can go ahead and deploy the capital. So that's another way that we can also ensure that this capital is reaching people who really need it the most.
Thank you for that. And speaking of reach, okay, go ahead.
I think it's two things. What Abasi said in terms of being intentional and having that mindset to have a theory of change that's beyond shareholder value is important. And the example I use in the financial services sector is the deployment of ATMs. Now we can see the controversy over ATM deployments, especially when it comes to the central bank reducing the fees and charges they can charge. ATMs have gone down, cash in ATMs is reducing. So the question I ask the bankers is, how many ATMs do you deploy around hospitals? And what's the purpose of the ATM? To dispense cash, right? So assuming you take your relative or your loved one to a hospital and you need to dispense cash for that transaction, the ATM isn't dispensing cash. What happens? There's a secondary case of loss of life. But because they're not looking at it from that perspective, for them it's really all about how do we make money from each ATM we'll deploy in every location. That is an impact investment, but it's about changing the narrative. Rather than looking at it from what's in it for us, but what's in it for society and the common good in general. And I think that's the first step we need to take. How do we begin to change the narrative to ensure that we're not looking at only ourselves, but we're looking at everybody else? And it's in doing well, because you generate more transactions, you help more people, and then we leave a better legacy in general. So that's just one example that we need to be mindful about and continually think about. So when we're thinking about investments, yes, Sam, we need to have a business case. But that business case can also be flipped around, that what is the converse of not doing this thing?
That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. Let's clap for that. Yeah.
So I actually want to say something in response to your question. I think I want to dispel the fact that it takes longer for social businesses to grow. One of the fastest growing startups in Africa is actually an impact type company, Andela. Right, you might say what you want about Andela, but they have provided lots of jobs for Africans, and brought up lots of young people into a better future. Right, and when you look at how well they're doing, they're growing pretty fast. I can also use my company as an example. The fact that we were able to raise the highest seed funding of any healthcare startup in Africa, and the amount of investor attention on an international scale. Now, why is that? I think when you have, when your company makes impact and you have a good story, you're able to attract a lot of investor interest, both impact investors and quote-unquote non-impact investors. You're able to attract a lot of media attention.